I'm Patty Dreier, Portage County Executive. Welcome to Portage County Matters, a television show, podcast, however you view it. It's an opportunity for you to find out more about what's going on in your county. I'm really excited today. The guest I have with me today is Dr. Haney. He's the former Dean of the College of Natural Resources at UW-Stevens Point. But before I get to Alan to talk about land trusts, I'd like to give you a couple of updates about what's going on in Portage County in the month of April. And I really thought that since this is the month of Earth Day, since this is the month when we really start getting outside, that it would be a good set of topics on land trusts today. So I hope folks will find a lot of benefit in what we'll have to share in the show today. A couple of things first, though, and one of them is that I've got two citizen appointees to assign to the Commission on Aging Board, and that's also known as the Aging and Disability Resource Center Board. And these are positions for individuals that have different kinds of qualifications. I'll tell you about those in a second. But the bottom line is these are folks that would help us make decisions for the future of our aging and disability resource services here in Portage County. And there are monthly board meetings, there are per diems for these committee members, and your mileage would be covered. Basically, one of the positions is for someone age 65 or older. That's it. That's the only qualification. And the other position is one for a person who can help us represent developmental disabilities. So, for example, if you have a family member with a developmental disability, or you have one, or you are a person who represents or who works with that population in your professional status, you have opportunities here for an appointment to this board. If you're interested in either of these two appointments, I ask you to give us a call at the County Executive's office at 715-346-1997, and Jamie will send you an application. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Another chance to be involved. Another bit of news, something that's been in the headlines a lot lately, and that was the McDill Dam repair. So at the March County Board meeting, the Portage County Board of Supervisors went ahead and approved the participation of Portage County in the dam agreement, the McDill Dam agreement, and that will also help us repair County Road HH, which is the county's responsibility. So this agreement commits Portage County to participating in 1/3 of the cost of the repairs, not to exceed $147,263. Now that includes a $25,000 contingency, so hopefully we won't need to spend that much. And the other 2/3 will be paid by the city and the Lake District. The total project cost is $622,000. And $385, and then there's the state grant in the picture here that the Village of Whiting received from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, and that DNR grant is a $255,596 grant. So when you put all of this together, the bottom line for us as Portage County taxpayers is that no matter what, we need to fix County HH. The longer we wait, the more it will cost. What we have with this partnership is an opportunity to stretch our county tax dollars further by partnering with others and getting the job done sooner. Our estimates in Portage County from our highway commissioner working with AECom engineers is that if we were going to repair County HH on our own, that is without partnering on the repair of the McDill Dam, that the cost would be over $327,000. So by partnering, we save almost $180,000 in the design here, and we still get the job done of repairing that road. So I'm happy to be moving on. I'm sure you are too, and we'll look forward to restoring the reservoir later this year as we repair the road. The Portage County Board also passed at its March meeting the Phase 2 Strategic Energy Management Plan for transportation fuels in Portage County. Now this is a really exciting one. This plan establishes a 2010 benchmark for transportation fuels. To this point in time, we haven't had any good handle on how many vehicles, how many miles are traveled, how much transportation fuels cost, but that now is behind us because we now know through this study that's gone on for about the last year, that we have 155 county-owned, registered, and licensed vehicles, that we've traveled 1.9 million miles in county-owned vehicles in our baseline year of 2010. And we know that transportation, I mean, we knew this well before the study, but you know as well as I that transportation is essential to the county's mission. Whether we're traveling those miles in a snowplow or we're in a deputy's vehicle doing rounds in a rural community for law enforcement, whether it's in an ambulance or whether we're traveling to meet with our state leaders in Madison, the bottom line is we need transportation fuels and we need to transport ourselves in order to accomplish the mission. But what this plan does, I am really encouraged by it, is it will help us get a better handle on where we've come from and where we're going and how we will be making better informed decisions for our future of transportation fuels. Ultimately, I'd like to see us be reducing the financial impacts on the county's budget as those fuel prices continue to rise. It's exciting to see that just as a result of planning through this phase 2 transportation planning process for energy, our highway department right now is exploring the possibility of biodiesel fuels as a result. So there's one great thing happening right now. I want to give special thanks and recognition to Space and Properties Chair Jeannie Dodge, who is also the chair of the Smart Energy team. Boy, she did some heavy lifting over these last 2 years related to both Phase 1 and Phase 2 energy plans. So did County Board Supervisor Al Haga. He did a tremendous amount of work on the Smart Energy team. Now, I was there, and the chair of the county board, Phil Eidsvog, was there, but our staff really did some extra work. That's the Director of Planning and Zoning, Jeff Schuler, UW Extension agent, Christy Sablanca, AmeriCorps member who's a part of the Central Wisconsin Resiliency Project, Dan Mechanic, and Facilities Director, Todd Neufeld. All of us working together with other key fuel users in the county out of our Sheriff's Department, Parks Department, Highway Department, and more, all participated in pulling this plan together. We've got a lot of work ahead of us in energy conservation and exploring alternative energy fuels for Portage County government, but we've got a smart start thanks to the Smart Energy team and the county board's foresight on this issue. This will lay the planning groundwork so that we can get this ball, or maybe I should say tire, rolling in the right direction. So anyway, thank you to all of you. And the last bit of news that I want to give you today, before we get to my guest, Dr. Haney, is that I want to mention a really awesome event that's going on in April in Portage County, the Prairie Chicken Festival, and it happens April 13th to 15th here in Portage County, in southwest Portage County, in the town of Grant. And the Prairie Chicken Festival, I participated in the past. It's really an awesome family time, and there's a whole bunch of information about what's happening for the events over the whole weekend, and you can find that at the website prairiechickenfestival.org. But the other thing that's so neat about this is that we're really celebrating grasslands and natural resource management and the cooperation of farmers with natural resource managers in the state. Now, I don't know how much you know about the greater prairie chicken, but the bottom line is that in 1954, that bird species was near extinction. It's such a quirky and awesome bird. You've got to get out and learn more about this animal that calls Portage County home. And the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources in 1954 entered into a partnership with conservation groups and farmers, and they established the Prairie Chicken Management Program in the Buena Vista grasslands here in southwestern Portage County. And the successful growth and continuation of the project has saved the species from extinction. And basically the Prairie Chicken Festival celebrates that and gets us all together and gets us outside and continues to help us learn about how it works, how these kinds of partnerships work. So I hope you'll check out the program details again at prairiechickenfestival.org, or call the RC&D office at 715-343-6215. One of the things that's going to happen that same weekend on April 14th is that there is going to be a bike ride. We've never done this before, first thing here. We're going to do a bike ride. This is an informal group of folks. Justin Isherwood has pulled it together. A bike ride from Keene to Kellner in Portage County, crossing the Buena Vista Marsh. Now, we don't know what the weather's going to be, and we don't know how sloppy it's going to be, but we're all going to get out there, including myself, for the 12-mile bike derby, essentially from the town of Buena Vista to the town of Grant in Portage County. My bike's still hung in the garage, so I need to get it out and get my legs working so I'm ready for 12 miles. And you can do the same thing to get us all active here in this early spring. We're going to leave at noon from Keene, County BB and JJ in the town of Buena Vista, and we're going to work ourselves across blacktop and gravel and plain dirt roads, and maybe even more dirt or mud than roads. And it's going to be fun as we celebrate whatever the weather brings and celebrate the fellowship of a lot of outdoors people who love the Buena Vista Marsh. There's no entry fee. It's not a race. Everything's at your own risk. There's no porta potties, no special wayside stations. We're gonna just bicycle, so you need to carry anything you need with you. And again, it's just 12 miles in the early spring to have a good time and enjoy the Buena Vista wildlands in an up close and personal way. So I hope you'll join me. If you want more information, you can give my office a call at 346-1997. Now, that's it for my news clips today. It's time to get on to the topic of the day: land conservation, land preservation, conservation easements. And Dr. Haney, Alan Haney, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, way back in my past and in your past, you were the Dean of the College of Natural Resources at UW-Stevens Point, and you hired me.
I did. I remember. It was a good hire.
Well, anyway, I'm just so excited that I get to sit here with you today. And today what we'd like to have listeners learn about is the North Central Conservancy Trust, our regional land trust organization, and how conservation easements work. Sure. And I think the business might be picking up in that field, so we want folks to be on the leading edge of knowing where to look for more information if they're interested.
Sure, sure. Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity, Patty. I appreciate it very much. North Central Conservancy Trust is a relatively new organization. We began about 1995 in Wausau, and that really didn't develop very fast up there, but when a group here in Portage County decided they wanted to get involved in land conservation, they contacted Gathering Waters, the state conservation organization, who recommended that we join with the Wausau group, and then from there it has grown into a land trust that serves 8 counties now. The most activity is in Portage County and has been so for some years now, but we do get as far north as Taylor County and as far south as Marquette County, so we do cover a fairly large area. We currently have 38 land trusts, conservation easements that we work in cooperation with landowners. So these are always done in cooperation with a landowner who wants to protect the conservation values on their property. And our job is to work with the landowner to develop that easement, which then is attached to the deed and becomes a permanent restriction on the deed with regard to what can be done with that property, not only in the current ownership, but in any future ownership. So it goes with the deed wherever that deed goes. It does not affect in any way what the landowner can do with that land as far as selling it or willing it or whatever. And many of these lands are also working farms or working forest lands and so forth. So the whole aim is to protect the conservation values. Now, let me just say a little bit about what a land trust is and a conservation easement.
I want folks to know, though, Alan, I mean, you're the president of the board of the North Central Conservancy Trust. Right. And, you know, you're bringing all of your forestry and ecology background to this. So we're talking about folks that also understand how land works. Absolutely. And how the ecology works. Absolutely. In helping to guide landowners who might be interested in this voluntary effort, really. It is. It's totally voluntary. We have a part-time executive director, Joe Sizer, but otherwise it's all volunteer. And we do have a lot of professional, retired professional, and even active professional people who work with the organization to get the easements developed and so forth. But first, maybe what a conservation easement is. Yeah. A conservation easement
is a legal document, so it's developed. We have an attorney in Wausau that works with us to review the language of the easement and so forth to make sure that, one, it does what the landowner would like it to do, and second, that it's a legal document, that it's easily understood, and there wouldn't be any confusion in the future with regard to understanding what the intent of the landowner was in putting the restrictions on the property. But essentially, it limits development in almost all cases. That's usually the minimal thing that a land easement does, a conservation easement. And secondly, it limits the kinds of things that can be done with the resources there. For example, it may say that no mining could be done or things of that nature, or that waterways or wetlands are protected above and beyond what would ordinarily be protected by law and so forth. So these are things that landowners value. They want to see protected in perpetuity, and that is their primary motivation for doing easements. So the easement could be on a working farm, as I say, or land that's in managed forest law or other things of that sort, or it could be strictly a natural area and so forth. So it all depends on the landowner and what they wish. And usually in fact, we encourage landowners to consult extensively with family and others who might have an interest in that land to make sure that it represents the total value and intent of the family, not just an individual. Now, the land trust, we're one of about 50 land trusts in Wisconsin. Wisconsin has a lot of land trusts, and we pretty well cover the entire state. Many states, Minnesota, for example, has one land trust that covers the entire state. In Wisconsin, we have 50 land trusts that cover segments of the state. Door County is a land trust in itself, for example, but we cover an 8-county area. The North Central Conservancy Trust, which operates out of an address here in Stevens Point, is one of the more active land trusts in the state.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised either.
I really am not.
Tremendous interest in this part of the state in protecting the beauty of the land, the watersheds, the wildlife habitat, the forest, the mix of farm and forest lands that we enjoy here. And I would say that if you had to put the mission of our organization in brief, it would be to protect in perpetuity this beautiful section of the country. In fact, you know, as we work with people around this 8-county area, it's interesting that over and over again people say that of all the places they've been, this is the place they want to live. This is the most beautiful place they've ever been. And although there are lots of beautiful places, as you know, Patty, and you've been around the world as much as anybody, it's hard to find something nicer than central Wisconsin when it comes to a place to live and to work and to play.
Absolutely.
And that's our mission, is to make sure that we can continue that in perpetuity by working with landowners to keep the land the way they would like to have it kept.
You know, I was just on, I was doing a search on the state website related to land trusts. So when you mentioned the 50 and so on, but one of the things that folks don't often think about probably is even the Ice Age Trail Alliance. I used to be on the board of that organization.
Right.
And,
I did too.
And I just think it's one of the greatest causes in the state.
Absolutely.
Right now. And they're also registered as a land trust organization. So it's about, you know, again, planning for the future.
Exactly.
Now, when we talk about a parcel, okay, let's say I have my, you know, my 10 acres. Does it mean that I have to put the entire 10 acres in a conservation easement, or can I take a portion of my 10 acres and we outline some subsection of it? How does it work?
Sure. It can be a subsection of an entire property. It does not have to be the entire property. So it may require that the part going into the easement be surveyed so that it's legally defined, but it could be a subset of a bigger property. We have a tendency, because we're stretched pretty thin with people that want to protect their land, and so we have a tendency to favor larger acreages because it gives us more bang for the buck in essence when we're working with people. So we do have some small parcels. We have parcels under 20 acres certainly, and particularly if they are on undeveloped water, lake shores or streams, or have important wetlands or natural areas in them, so forth. We have no hesitancy at all to work with a landowner of small acreages. But yes, often if somebody lives on the property, we'll set aside the house and barns and whatever other improvements they may have on the property and carve that area out of the easement so that we don't have to be monitoring what's going on in their backyard.
Sure, sure. Let's talk about costs. You know, what do what do folks who might be interested need to think about in relation to the financial aspects of land trusts?
Sure. That's a big question.
Yeah, I know.
And of course, it's the question that everybody wants to know. We endow every easement. So whether the landowner who's putting the easement on their property provides the funding for that endowment, or whether we have to go out and find that money elsewhere, every easement is endowed. And the reason for that is that we are agreeing to protect that easement in perpetuity. So forever and ever and ever, we are going to be out there on an annual basis in cooperation with landowner, visiting that property to make sure that the terms of the easement are being upheld, and that there's a cost there. More importantly, that's not a huge cost, because most of that's done by volunteers, and it's kind of fun because you're out there walking the land with landowners who love the land and so forth, so it's usually a lot of fun. But the hidden cost in all this is that if there ever is a violation, usually it wouldn't be by the landowner who did the easement, it's going to be somewhere down the road with some future owner that may, maybe unintentionally, maybe intentionally violate the terms of the easement. We will try and work with that landowner to mitigate that violation.
Sure.
And if necessary, we'll take it to court to enforce the easement. And so once you get into court, then the cost can go up rather quickly. And so we try to endow our easements roughly between $5,000 to $10,000 per easement. And in most cases, in fact, in virtually all cases so far, landowners have put up that money as an investment in their easement. And we then invest that money and manage that in terms of the income accumulating and so forth. We've never had to use any of that money, so that body of money that we've invested has continued to grow, and so it's now fairly sizable.
One of the things, Alan, just please excuse me, but one of the things that I think about is our land preservation fund here in Portage County.
Right, been a big help.
Yeah, we've actually just not very long ago, I think it was December, we leveraged county dollars from our land preservation fund to match with other funds that the North Central Conservancy Trust put up with the landowners' help and so on, so that we could set aside these parcels of land.
It's been a big encouragement for people in Portage County to protect their conservation values on their land. None of the other 8 counties that we work with has done this, and so Portage County has kind of led the way for this, but it's been a big incentive for people to do conservation easements here. Of the 38 easements that we hold, 19 or 16 are here in Portage County, about 42% of our easements, and I have no doubt that one of the reasons is because of the incentive that Portage County has provided. Patty, I wanted to go back to say a little bit more about the cost, because we've just looked at the cost, the upfront cost when I talk about the endowment and so forth for getting the easement done. But there are some really good tax benefits, and I wanted to talk about taxes a little bit.
Thank you. I had it on my list. That was the next one. Good.
So first of all, the benefit to the landowner is that so far the IRS, and it looks like this is going to continue, the federal government, and this is both sides of the aisle, it's got both Democratic and Republican support, has allowed the cost of putting an easement on the property to be taken out of earned income. So you can treat it as a charitable donation in essence, because by protecting the conservation value on your land, you're really gifting that to the public. And that's the way IRS has seen this for many, many years, and it looks like that's going to be continued into the future. Secondly, because you're putting restrictions on land, that reduces the value. And this is a problem for some people because they're really reluctant to do anything that might reduce the value of their land. And so that reduction of land value based on appraisals before and after the easement is completed, that reduction of land value is also seen as a gift to the public. And that too can be taken off of the federal and state earned income. So it reduces the tax burden for whatever period of time, and that usually can be spread out over 15 years if it's a sizable reduction. You don't have to take whatever you can take in 1 year, you can spread it out. So there is an immediate payback for the landowners who do this, and it usually is considerably more than the cost of doing the easement, including the endowment for the easement. So there is some offsets there which favor the landowner. Now, as far as the tax assessment on the property, because of the reduced value, because of the restrictions placed on the property, some towns will recognize that in terms of the tax assessment, so it can reduce real estate taxes. Of course, the downside of that is that it passes that burden to others who are paying the full freight on their taxes. So we recognize that. We're very sensitive to that. But the interesting thing is that although there's not enough data to draw any hard conclusions, for the most part, having a conservation easement protecting the conservation values of property has not reduced the real estate value as much as one would expect. The development, it does restrict development. So the real value of property that's going to be developed, obviously, is that doesn't happen. But a lot of people will pay just as much for land that's got the conservation values protected as they would for land that doesn't have such restrictions on it.
And probably their neighboring property, so that I know somebody's not going to build right over that line.
Precisely. Yeah. It actually enhances neighboring property values quite often. Yeah.
Well, I know that there are so many different sides to this, but one of the other things to look at is how do we balance the big picture. And when we balance the big picture, it's about quality of the water we're drinking and so on and so forth. And, I think it all fits together, and it's about a balanced approach.
Absolutely.
Now, you've got some, we've got a few minutes left. You've got some first property trusts over in Wood County, huh?
Yes, we just signed our first conservation easement actually on the Yellow River. This is a beautiful property that borders the Yellow River, and this is a retired military man who bought the property years and years ago, just loves the property, and he wanted to see it kept intact. And it's a managed forest. Much of his land is intensively managed forest, and some of it's farm, but most of it is bottom lands along the Yellow River. So we're really excited about that because there's a lot of areas in Wood County we'd like to see protected.
One of the things that I've learned about the North Central Conservancy Trust was, you know, when you're getting ready to evaluate whether or not it'll be appropriate, I guess you would say, for a certain kind of easement or trust, you send out teams of people, and you're doing census, ecology census, and so on and so forth about the property, really getting to know how it looks, what species are there, what the conditions are, and the other features. So that's kind of an exciting inventory, I guess.
Well, and it's a fun project for people that are interested in being out there and looking at land and evaluating the birds and the wildlife and the habitat and so forth. And so it's kind of fun for our volunteers to do that. But we give each landowner who does a conservation easement a baseline document, which we're required by the IRS to have on file. And that baseline document looks at soils, it looks at water, it looks at wildlife and rare plants. Every aspect of the property is included in that baseline, photo documented, described, and so the landowner gets a copy of that. And then we use that baseline into the future to see that the property is being maintained. And
then think about how that figures into the bigger science base here in the state of Wisconsin. And of course, a great tie to your professional background. Now, how do volunteers get involved, and where can they find out more information? We're going to have the website at the bottom of the screen here.
Oh, terrific. Well, probably the easiest place is to go to the website, and there's all the information there. They could also contact me or Joe Sizer, our executive director, and I can give the phone number. Or
you're welcome to. You're welcome to.
The phone number, if somebody wanted to contact us, is 715-341-7741.
Excellent. And I hope lots of folks do. I mean, this is a really great way to get out and get to know your state, your county and your state better, and to join with really awesome, smart people who can teach you a lot about natural resources at the same time. Thank you for what you do and for what the North Central Conservancy Trust does. That's for sure.
And thank you for your support.
Now, the other thing, next month, my guest is Trish Kalbaker. She's our new clerk of courts in Portage County, and she's going to teach us all about, oh my goodness, the CCAP conversion. That's that computer database conversion, and Portage County was the last to join the state's database, but you're going to find out how this impacts your own life and opportunities that it opens up for you in a quicker response from our courts to your home computer. Anyway, we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us.